Today, we are diving deep into a presidential order that could, well, pull the plug on public media as we know it. And believe me, this isn't just about dollars and cents. Nope. This is a battle over free speech and really the future of news in America. All right, let's get into it.
It all boils down to this one single, incredibly powerful sentence. On May 1st, 2025, this directive was signed, and boom, it set off a massive political and legal firestorm. It immediately put the White House in one corner and two of the nation's biggest media institutions in the other.
So, what's the deal with this order? Well, the title kind of says it all: ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media. And its goal is pretty straightforward: to cut off all federal money flowing to NPR and PBS. Now, let's really dig into why the White House says it's making this move. Okay, so what's the White House's side of the story here? The order itself actually gives us a few really clear clues about the thinking behind this decision, and it starts with, a little trip back in time. The first argument is basically a history lesson. Think about it. Back in 1967, when the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the CPB, was created, you had, a handful of TV channels, a few radio stations? Today, we are absolutely swimming in a sea of news options on countless platforms. The administration's point is that public funding is just a relic of a totally different era. But the order goes even further. It claims that government funding is, and I'm quoting here, corrosive to the appearance of journalistic independence. The idea being, how can a news outlet really hold the powerful accountable if it's taking government cash? It also alleges that NPR and PBS have failed to provide fair, accurate, or unbiased coverage. And it makes a key legal point, that no media outlet has a constitutional right to taxpayer money in the first place. As you can probably guess, NPR and PBS did not take this sitting down. Not at all. They fired back with lawsuits of their own, and that's where things start to get really, really interesting. This fight wasn't just starting, it was basically exploding. Yeah, this executive order didn't just come out of nowhere. If you look at the months leading up to it, you can see tensions were already sky high. In March, the CPB sued a federal agency over emergency alert funding. Then, a month later, another lawsuit pops up over an attempt to fire board members. Then, bam, May 1st, the order drops. And by the end of that same month, both NPR and PBS have jumped into the legal battle. So, what's the core of their legal challenge? They're arguing that this whole executive order is, simply put, unlawful. They say the president is totally overstepping his authority. And this is the really big one. They claim that cutting off their funds based on the content of their programming is a form of government retaliation, which they argue is a serious violation of their First Amendment right to free speech. And this is where we have to get into the legal weeds a little bit. The whole case could really turn on a couple of incredibly tricky questions that honestly just don't have easy answers. Okay, here it is. The million-dollar question. Is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting a government agency? It sounds so simple, right? A yes or no. But the answer is a total legal labyrinth, and it could seriously decide the entire fate of public media. And just looking at this, you can see why it's so complicated. I mean, on one side, you have the government's fingerprints all over the CPB. It was created by an act of Congress for a public purpose, and the president picks the board members. But then, on the other hand, Congress specifically called it a private, nonprofit entity. They tried to build a firewall to keep the government out. It's a genuine legal toss-up. Now, let's talk about these two words, objectivity and balance. The White House's entire argument really hinges on the idea that NPR and PBS have failed this test from that original 1967 law. But what does that phrase actually mean in a legal sense? Well, that's a question that's been debated for decades. See, historically, courts have looked at this not as some hard and fast rule, but more as an aspirational obligation, a noble goal to strive for, not a legal line that you get punished for crossing. Courts have even warned that turning it into a legally enforceable standard, which is exactly what this order seems to be doing, could be unconstitutional. It could give the government a weapon to punish media outlets it just doesn't like. So while all the lawyers are battling it out in court, let's talk about what this really means for you and me. I mean, how much does your favorite NPR show or that PBS documentary you love actually rely on this government funding? Okay, get ready for a little plot twist here. For NPR, federal funding is a tiny, tiny slice of the pie. We're talking just 1% of its total revenue. 1%.
For PBS, it's a bigger chunk for sure, coming in at 16%. That's significant, yeah, but still, for both of them, it is not the whole story. Not even close.
So, if not from the government, where does all the rest of the money come from? Well, it's a real mix. You've got corporate sponsors, member stations that pay dues, and this is the most important part, individual contributions from people just like you. That right there is the real engine that keeps public media running.
Ultimately, when you strip away all the courtroom drama and the political talking points, this whole conflict forces a much, much larger conversation. It pushes every one of us to ask what we as a society really want from public media, who should be footing the bill for it, and what its purpose even is in an age where we have seemingly infinite information at our fingertips.